Okay. Hi. Actually, I'm just realizing we had done more than this. Jhan pe where this is stopped. Um, we were talking about traditions and how um Baba was asked why he says that the traditions are absolutely rotten and yet says that people are more than 50% all right. I think that was the last bit that we did, na?
Mm.
I think. Were you there? Who was there last time when we had the last session before Diwali? I
Rick
I think I
Manigait.
was there, but I don't remember this sentence. I know
Oh,
he said people want to be on the correct thing and all that he said.
huh.
And traditions, but I didn't know the two things came together.
Yeah, so that was in the beginning. I mean, I'm sure we covered that. I'm just wondering if we did beyond that as well. Because this whole section, he was talking about how the four seats of power are absolutely rotten, the systems are absolutely rotten. And then Rajan Maharajji, who's the one asking questions, he's asking then, and yet how can you say that then the individuals are 51% okay? And so he says, see, the individuals are willing to change, but it's the systems that have become stubborn and are unwilling to change. So it is the individuals who are human beings who are hoping to find resolution and harmony. Systems are not looking for harmony. And the people on the seats of power who have become stubborn are also not looking for harmony. They're only looking to continue, prolong their stay in power. So it is those who are still
Mm.
seeking improvement and seeking harmony, they are the ones who have some hope for change. And that seeking improvement and harmony is the 51% hopefulness or goodness in each individual.
Mm.
Whereas the systems they are part of are completely rotten. And I remember, Pashwa, you were there because we were talking about how these same individuals, when they are participating in the systems, will then find that contradiction between
Mm.
their urge to do the right thing and do the just thing versus what the system dictates is normal or, you know, appropriate to be done. And, it may
Yeah.
seem then things like it's idealistic to think this way is often a statement that's thrown about because doing the
Yeah.
right thing or doing the harmonious thing is considered to be idealistic in the currently rotten systems. So it's not, people don't
Mm.
question the systems, they end up questioning their own desires for harmony. So, he's saying it's the system which is rotten. That is what needs to be changed, not your innate desire to seek harmony and do the right thing and be just and fair and honest and loving. That what happens is
Yeah.
people who are getting kind of the bored and getting crushed within the system start questioning themselves only ki we must be lacking, we must be at fault because we're not doing well in the system, whereas it's the system that's completely rotten,
Mm.
it's completely misaligned with coexistence and complementarity and relation.
So true, no? It's very true, really.
So that's
And there's also like an assumption, no, that basically anything that is you know more that's harmonious and just and all that stuff is kind of is not practical. Like you can't have a system on like which has those qualities because the practical aspect of a business or a institution has to be something that's more
cutthroat
sort of
or
in unjust in some ways, or hierarchical, or
either or competitive struggle full of like the real world is full of struggle and strife. That's why our systems are full of, that's the narrative, right? That's why our systems are full of struggle and strife. And well, you hope for harmony and kindness and cooperation, but that's just impractical in the real world. That's the kind of narrative that goes around. Yeah. Or
yeah,
it's
yeah,
eat, what's the saying, eat or be eaten, sort of kill or be killed or something like that, no?
yeah. The hunter or the be the hunter or the hunted.
Yeah, yeah.
That kind of.
Good people always suffer. Well, the systems are flawed, and we keep looking at the individuals, whereas we need to be rethinking the very systems that we are a part of. Instead of normalizing the flawed systems and then trying to kind of, tweak each individual to match it.
Yeah.
So where was that? I'll have to find it to be.
जैसे आपने भी कहा है, ये सब चीज मिल गया तो मैंने व्यवहारिक हो गई, ऐसा सोचते थे, इसी को विकास मानते थे।
हाँ, we also talked about development.
जबकि इसमें विकास का कोई सुख तो मिला नहीं, ये तो बात साक्षी है।
बात कही है, और आज विज्ञान जगत में उसका विकासवाद जो है लगभग स्वीकृत है कुछ चुनौतियों।
We talked about Darwin. Okay, we had gone much further.
विकास है ये कहते हैं, तो शरीर को तैयार करके मानव बन जाना था, ऐसा हुआ नहीं कि विधि ये बनता है। विकास जो होता है, विकास का ध्रुव बिंदु बनता है, वो जीवन है।
Right. So we had also talked about evolution and development and a comparison between what is proposed in science or by Darwin in terms of evolution and what Baba is calling development or evolution over here. And that he had talked about how what Darwin describes is the physical evolution of a physical, chemical, bodily structure. And that too also actually he limited it just to the bones. And that doesn't actually define human beings and therefore, or animals for that matter, their bodily structure, their skeletal structure. And so we cannot consider that to be evolution for human beings because that doesn't even come close to defining what human beings are. Evolution or development is what we all naturally seek. So had we evolved or developed completely, we would be satisfied because when we achieve what we seek, we become satisfied. So had evolution ended upon our bodily skeletal structure in this human form, then we wouldn't be seeking any further evolution beyond this. Whereas what we find is that we all still seek some further development, some further evolution. And that evolution, he says, is distinct from bodily evolution. That is an evolution of our consciousness and thereupon the evolution of our social environment. Because what we seek in terms of development, what our goals are resolution in the individual, prosperity in the family, fearlessness in the society, and coexistence on the planet. And those are the hallmarks of true development or true evolution. And so that is what he calls development or evolution. Although he has no disagreement with the fact that bodily structures have also evolved, but what he does have a problem with is considering that to be the ultimate evolution. He says, yeah, that's one sequence of evolution, the bodily, physical, chemical matter, but there's much more beyond that. That's what he says.
जीवन यदि नहीं होता, शरीर से कुछ आप काम नहीं कर पाओगे। केवल जीवन के आधार पर भी मानव नहीं है, इसीलिए जीवन और शरीर के संयुक्त रूप में हम मानव का संज्ञा पाते हैं, और परमाणु में जो विकास होता है वो दूसरे अर्थ में है।
Right. So at culmination, he talked about these 4 goals of resolution, prosperity, fearlessness, and coexistence are achieved by the human being. And the human being is a composite of the Jeevan and the body. No, it's not just the Jeevan and it's not just the body. It is a composite of the two. Because without the Jeevan, the body is not even alive. And without the body, the Jeevan cannot evidence itself in the family, even as an individual, cannot evidence itself as a family, cannot evidence itself as society, and definitely not at the level of the planet. So the Jeevan needs the body to be able to participate in the orderliness of nature. Therefore, we can't separate the two. Now, that is the human development, human evolution. And another way that he has talked about development is the development of an atom, which is an altogether different thing, where he calls the conscious atom, the Jeevan atom, to be the most highly developed atom. in that conscious atom, after becoming completely highly developed, then combines with physical chemical bodies to run them as animals and then eventually as a human being, which is the next whole sequence of development and evolution. So here he's clarifying how he uses development.
गठन पूर्णता के अर्थ में विकास है, ठीक है। हर एक गठन में एक से अधिक अंशों का होना जरूरी है। हर एक परमाणु गठन में एक से
I feel like we did this also, no? The number of particles and the configuration.
परमाणुओं में अनेक संख्या माने कम से कम 2 से लेकर अनेक अंशों का संख्या समाई रहती है। इसी क्रम में वो परमाणु जिसको हम तृप्त परमाणु का सिद्ध हो जाता है। अनेक प्रजाति के परमाणु हैं, उसमें से एक प्रजाति का परमाणु जीवन है। इसमें किसको क्या तकलीफ है भाई? ये सही है, अंशों का समावेश होना, घटना बढ़ना है ना, ये चीज वो जीवन परमाणु में होता नहीं है। इसीलिए अक्षय शक्ति, अक्षय बल होना बताई गई है।
This I remember we had completed. I'm just going to check in our last video.
Yeah.
But let's continue from here. It sounding very.
Okay.
It's a nice part to be in.
Okay. So we actually had done till 7 minutes beyond this point. So we can continue from here if we want. So here he's talking about how development in the atom is development in the atom's configurational stability. Each atom is composed of more than one particles, which are called subatomic particles. And their configuration means how they are arranged with one another can be stable or unstable. And unstable means that after a certain point of time, it will break down into some other configuration with different number of atoms. So he says that there are atoms of different kinds, and some atoms, you can divide them into two. Some atoms you find are unstable in the sense that they seek more subatomic particles to become stabler. Whereas there are other atoms who seek to expel subatomic particles to become stabler. So the first kind he calls hungry atoms, and the second kind he calls overfull or glutted atoms. And what he says is that between these, so if you arrange them in a spectrum of the hungriest atom, and then the less hungry, then the less hungry, then the less hungry, and the least hungry, and then the most glutted, most overfull atom, most willing to throw away particles, compared to the less glutted, less glutted, less glutted, less glutted. Eventually, you come to one point in which the atom is completely satiated. Neither does it require more particles to become more stable, nor does it need to expel particles to become more stable. So in that sense, it's a completely stable, completely satiated atomic configuration. And that atom, that atomic configuration is the Jeevan atom. So many such Jeevan atoms are the entities that run animal and human bodies. And that point where atomic structures evolve to such stability into becoming a configurationally stable, configurationally complete, configurationally satiated atom, or the Jeevan atom, that is what he is calling development to begin with. So that is the Jeevan atom. So he's saying there are many types of atoms. Jeevan atom is also another kind of atom.
जीवन परमाणु में होता नहीं है, इसीलिए अक्षय शक्ति, अक्षय बल होना बताई गई है.
And so now there is no absorption or emission of subatomic particles in the Jeevan atom, and therefore we say that, therefore I have said, he says, that it has indestructible powers and indestructible forces. So what that means is that every atom has certain powers and certain forces. You know, it's some electromagnetic radiation it's giving off, and it has some electromagnetic potential also. And but that you could say it exists while the atomic structure exists. And eventually, because all other atoms beside the Jeevan eventually break down into something else, we find that those potentials, those powers and forces are not eternal. They are not indestructible. They only exist while the atom exists. Whereas the Jeevan atom exists eternally. So its forces and its powers exist eternally. In that way, those forces and powers are indestructible.
ठीक है। इस ढंग से जीवन परमाणु को विकसित वस्तु हम कह रहे हैं, विकास के बाद जागृति की बात कर रहे हैं।
So, all right, in this sense, I am calling the conscious atom as the developed entity. And beyond development, I talk about awakening. So there is the progression of development at which, and when that culminates, it culminates into the development of a conscious atom. And beyond that, now this conscious atom undergoes the progression of awakening.
जीवन में जागृति होती है।
So this awakening happens only in the Jeevan.
जागृति का परमावधि क्या है? जानना मानना होता है।
Now, what is the ultimate in awakening? That is knowing and believing.
ये बताया, पहचानना निर्वाह करना पहले परमाणु अंश से ही शुरू हुई है।
That I have already mentioned. Now, recognizing and responding is something that began with the first ever subatomic particle.
परमाणु अंश दूसरे परमाणु अंश को पहचानता है, इसीलिए निश्चित अच्छी दूरी में रह करके व्यवस्था को समीकरण किए हैं।
Because one subatomic particle recognizes the other subatomic particle, therefore it is able to maintain a good, appropriate, definite distance with it and evidences orderliness with the other particle.
अंश को पहचानता है, इसीलिए निश्चित अच्छी दूरी में रह करके व्यवस्था को समीकरण किए हैं, व्यवस्था के रूप में कार्य कर रहे हैं।
And therefore it is able to function in an orderly manner with other subatomic particles.
यही भौतिक क्रियाकलाप रासायनिक क्रियाकलाप के रूप में गण्य होता है।
And it is this very physical activity that also gets counted, that is also seen under chemical processes.
ठीक है। और रासायनिक क्रियाकलाप के तो चरमोत्कर्ष रचना अभी तक की इस धरती पर मानव शरीर के रूप में प्रमाणित हो चुकी है।
And of this chemical activity, we find that the absolute culmination of the best of all chemical activities has already been evidenced on this planet in the form of the human body. Because the human body is nothing but a chemical substance, a chemical structure.
जीवन और शरीर के संयुक्त रूप में मानव प्रमाणित होता है।
And then the human being becomes evidenced in the form of a composite of this human body and a Jeevan.
जीवन जागृत होकर के शरीर के द्वारा जागृति को प्रमाणित करता है।
Then the Jeevan, upon awakening, evidences that awakening using the body.
जीवन जागृत होकर के शरीर के द्वारा जागृति को प्रमाणित करता है। इतनी बात होती है।
This is all that happens.
इसीलिए जो शरीर को जीवन मान लिया डार्विन ने, इसीलिए संवेदनशीलता के सीमा में ही आदमी अपने को डाल करके पचने के लिए तैयार हुआ।
Therefore, when Darwin assumed the body itself to be the Jeevan, ever since then it has been since then that humans have readied themselves to be digested within the purview of sensoriality. Basically, when science claims that the body is all there is to the human being, when you, the Jeevan, is the body, then it reduces you to your bodily sensations. And therefore, it reduces the human being's functioning to sensorial functioning. And so that is never enough for the human being. That is never enough to explain and understand the human being and engage on the basis on the basis of which to engage with a human being. Therefore, he says that in doing so, in considering us to be the body, we human beings have kind of put ourselves in this position where we become completely consumed or digested within an insufficient paradigm. We become crushed or digested within it. We lose ourselves within it.
इसके बावजूद भी बहुत सारे लोग माने पछते नहीं हैं, बहुत सारे लोग उसमें जिज्ञासु रहते ही हैं.
And despite this, there are a lot of people who don't get digested within such a system and who continue to remain curious.
इसीलिए मैंने कहा है आदमी परंपरा से ऊपर है, परंपरा बहुत ही सड़ चुका है.
And that is why I have said that the individual is higher, is above the tradition. The traditions have rotted away completely.
ये बात आपने कहा.
This is what has been said.
बाबा, जब आप दिल्ली गए हुए थे तो भारत के सुप्रीम कोर्ट के चीफ जस्टिस वेंकटाचलैया जी से आपकी मुलाकात हुई. उस समय आपने सार्वभौम न्याय की क्या अवधारणा उनके दिमाग में है ऐसा आपने सवाल किया था, तो उनके पास कोई उत्तर नहीं था.
This also we had done. So he asks, Baba, you had gone to Delhi and there you had met the Chief Justice of India, Mr. Venkatachalaya ji, and you had asked him about his view on universal justice. And to that he had had no answer.
धारणा उनके दिमाग में है ऐसा आपने सवाल किया था, तो उनके पास कोई उत्तर नहीं था. भारत के लिए अलग न्याय, पाकिस्तान के आदमियों के लिए अलग न्याय, भारत में हिंदू के लिए न्याय की परिभाषा अलग, मुसलमान की अलग, इस तरह से तो.
So he had no answer to that. He had different justice for citizens of India and different justice for those of Pakistan. Within India itself, there's justice was different for Hindus and different for Muslims, etc.
भारत में हिंदू के लिए न्याय की परिभाषा अलग, मुसलमान की अलग, इस तरह से तो आदमी एक भयानक भ्रम की स्थिति में पड़ जाता है. तो
And in this way, human beings fall into a terrible state of delusion going on this way, where the definition of justice differs so much for each demographic.
कोई सार्वभौम न्याय का स्वरूप आदमी, जब आदमी को आपने विकास के संदर्भ में एक अलग ढंग से व्याख्यायित किया, एक नया दृष्टिकोण आपने प्रस्तुत किया है, तो न्याय की मनुष्य जीवन में न्याय की क्या स्थिति बनती है, और एक बात आपने अपने उद्बोधन में और भी कही है.
So then, what is a conception of a universal justice based on this perspective, this new perspective that you have given, where you have placed the human being in this progression of development, that the way that you have? What is the conception of universal justice that you can give?
किया है, तो न्याय की मनुष्य जीवन में न्याय की क्या स्थिति बनती है, और एक बात आपने अपने उद्बोधन.
So what is the state that we find, what place does justice have in the human being's life? And another thing that you mentioned,
में और भी कही है कि न्याय जो है परिवार में प्रमाणित होता है.
that justice is something that is evidenced in the family.
हम लोग न्याय का प्रमाण अदालतों को मानते हैं, अदालत ने जो फैसला दिया वो न्याय है ऐसा हम लोग मानते हैं.
We consider justice to happen in the courts of law, in the courts of justice. Whatever decisions the courts of justice come to, that is what we consider to be justice.
आपने बिल्कुल एक भिन्न बात कह दी है कि न्याय परिवार में प्रमाणित होता है.
You have said something completely different, that justice is evidenced within the family.
तो सार्वभौम न्याय के स्वरूप के बाबत और परिवार में ऐसा न्याय कहाँ कैसे प्रमाणित होता है उसको थोड़ा स्पष्ट करिए.
So do clarify a bit on what this universal justice is and how it can be evidenced within the family.
हाँ, ये तो आ चुकी है जो जीवन विद्या के क्रम में.
So this has already been covered in this program of Jeevan Vidya, or the Jeevan's education that we just did.
इसका सूत्र रूप में कहा गया है संबंध मूल्यांकन उभय तृप्ति.
And in principle form, this has been stated as relationship, values, evaluation, and mutual fulfillment. These 4 points.
न्याय यही है.
That is what justice is.
उभय तृप्ति होना बहुत जरूरी है.
Mutual fulfillment is absolutely necessary.
उसमें संबंध का होना जरूरी है.
For which the relationship is necessary. You can't have mutual fulfillment outside of a relationship.
उसमें मूल्यों का होना जरूरी है.
And for a relationship, it should have values flowing in it.
मूल्यांकन होना जरूरी है.
And there needs to be an evaluation.
ये इसका एक पूरा का पूरा एक तादाद है.
So this is its overall summary. Its overall quantity.
No.
Just this is the whole material of justice. He's saying this is what justice is made up of.
एक गति है, एक तरंग है, एक सार्थक मंजिल है.
So this is a process. It is a flow, a vibration. No, it is एक गति है, तरंग है, and it is a meaningful destination to get to. He's talking about justice in the form of these 4 points: relationship, values that flow within the relationship, an evaluation of whether those values have flowed or not within the relationship, and mutual satisfaction based on this mutual evaluation. That is the goal, that is the meaningful goal, that is the meaningful process of justice.
मंजिल है. मनुष्य तो होता ही है. मनुष्य के साथ जड़ चैतन्य संसार का संबंध बना ही रहता है.
So this is a destination. Now, humans already exist, and along with humans, you already have a relationship with the physical chemical world.
मनुष्य के साथ जड़ चैतन्य संसार का संबंध बना.
Along with the human being, we already have a relationship with the material and conscious world. So humans already exist, and the relationship with the rest of the material and conscious world also exists for each human being.
नहीं रहता है. इसको आप नकारो चाहे सकारो, रहता है ही.
Whether you disagree, whether you accept it or you don't accept it, that continues to exist.
तो हवा के साथ आपका संबंध नहीं है, ऐसा कोई चीज आप बना नहीं सकते हैं.
So a state where you have no relationship with the air, you can't manifest such a state.
नैसर्गिकता के साथ आपका कोई संबंध नहीं है, ऐसा बना नहीं सकते.
Where a state where you have no relationship with the natural environment, again, you cannot manifest such a state.
मानव के साथ आपका संबंध नहीं है, ऐसा कुछ बना नहीं सकते.
Then again, a state where you have no relationship with other human beings, that also you cannot manifest.
इस प्रकार की व्यर्थ की प्रयास बहुत कुछ हुआ है.
And we have already had many pointless attempts in these directions before.
ये सब हमको समझ में है. क्या क्या प्रयास हुआ है, जितना धृष्टताएं आदमी ने किया है, जितना सज्जनता किया है, सारे बात हमारे नजरिया में है.
So all of that I am already aware of. all the kinds of foolishness and what?
सब हमको समझ में है क्या क्या प्रयास हुआ है, जितना धृष्टताएं आदमी ने किया है, जितना सज्जनता किया है, सारे बात.
So all the attempts that have been made, all the foolish attempts that have been made, as well as all the noble attempts that have been made, are all within my cognizance. I'm aware, I'm cognizant of all of them.
हमारे नजरिया में है, कोई चीज ओझिल नहीं है.
None of these, I'm not blind to any of these.
और घोर परिश्रम किया है, हट किया है, साहस किया है और विवेक का भी प्रयास किया है.
And humans have put in extreme hard work, extreme stubbornness, extreme courage, and they have also attempted wisdom, discretion, just good judgment. That has also been attempted.
विवेकपूर्ण प्रयास भी किया है. सब करके अंततोगत्वा हम परंपरा को कुछ दे नहीं पाए.
So there have been wise attempts as well. However, despite all of that, after having attempted all of this, at the end of the day, we have not been able to give anything to the tradition.
बात इतनी.
That's all it is.
ये सब वंदनीय है, स्तुत्य है और सराहनीय है. ये सब बात कहा जा सकता है.
This is all appreciable. It is worth praising and worth thanking. I don't remember the synonyms of this word. Basically, praise and appreciation.
और सराहनीय है, ये सब बात कहा जा सकता है.
We can say all of that, all these attempts have been appreciable. They have been praiseworthy.
किंतु परंपरा के लिए हमको कुछ दिया नहीं.
However, they have not given us anything for the tradition. Our traditions today, because he's saying the traditions at the end of the day are rotten.
ये सब करने का मतलब सारा तप योग अभ्यास करने का पूरा मतलब आदमी समझदार होना.
The point of doing all this tap yog, what were the words I keep forgetting, asceticism and all these yog, what would be a good word for this?
Tapasya? No.
Yog ke liye, like, the kind of physical abstinences and asceticism that all these saints and
Like siddhis, not siddhis.
No, that spiritual seekers put themselves through in order to attain some spiritual goal.
Penance?
Actually, yoga is the means uniting the material and the spiritual in one. No, that is the thing.
So essentially, it's penance. We're saying all this asceticism and penance, all of that would be meaningful only if it led to understanding. So, they have tried for all these spiritual goals, but if that doesn't lead to understanding, then what's the point of it? It is only meaningful if all of these attempts, all these asceticisms and penances all led to understanding, awakening.
का पूरा मतलब आदमी समझदार होना, प्रमाणित होना.
Would be if it would be meaningful if the human being became knowledgeable and became evidenced.
परंपरा में उसको घोलना, यही.
And so it would be meaningful if the individual became knowledgeable, if the individual became evidenced and was then able to spread this within the tradition.
Rishta, another question. So those humans that came in the past and now and future probably, like he himself, did do it and did achieve it, no? Samajdar, he became Samajdar. Those who did what he did, many of them, what he did, Not that everyone, if you just sat with the yoga, with your Vedas and never paid attention, just read them. वो अलग बात है. But what penance and all, many of them who did this did become samajhdar. No?
No, he's not saying that. He's saying whether they did or they did not, I cannot say, but they were not able to leave anything for the tradition.
But people have left for the tradition. So much, so many saints have left so much in the tradition, but it didn't become universally accepted.
No, but what did they leave? What we receive in our spiritual traditions, like in India, we have lots of traditions of all these saints. In fact, he starts with that only in his own family. He's coming from a family which has a strong
Veda, understanding the Vedas is only one part. No,
No, not Vedas. In his own family, there were several. He's saying in every generation, there was at least one individual who went for their own, like for the direct spiritual experience through samadhi. Because in this tradition, Indian tradition,
maybe in his case, no. But I'm saying there are many saints have come and they have been samajhdar. They've attained a samajhdari. But
on what
people like us, we are not doing penance, so we are not studying, or we're not. If we are not, then obviously most humans don't do that. No, most
no,
humans are not going into the study.
no. He's saying very categorically that all the penance that people have done before, if they had understood something, then there would be evidence for it. No, what they have left behind shows no evidence of any understanding.
So you mean to say Gautam Buddha didn't have any? There's no evidence of what he did.
No evidence of it. Yes, that is what we can say. What he has said. That there is no
What he did.
evidence of it. Maybe he got something and was not able to pass it on, and so he was not able to evidence it in his living. And so what got left behind of what he had said is what we find today. But evidence-wise, you see no evidence. Evidence is, for instance, say someone understands something, they'll be able to live it in their life, in their everyday living. They will be.
Gautam Buddha, was he living it in his life?
What was he living? Is what
We don't know. Forget Gautam Buddha. So many people have come. They live a nice, enjoyable life. We hear, we met people like that who did what they did, and they didn't transform the world. Jesus Christ also must have transformed lots of people. Himself, he was transformed.
so he,
All that is there, no? But I mean,
he's putting
tradition,
very strict.
every individual has their own path. So they may not follow a tradition that Jesus Christ put up, or Gautam Buddha put up, or even Babaji. We are following Babaji. And we are listening to him. We are trying to understand, become knowledgeable through his thing. But that doesn't mean the whole world is doing that, no? So we might pick up somebody in, that kind of thing.
Right. So there's a difference. When you say that they lived it in their life, what are we saying they lived in their life? He's saying living coexistentially or living in the natural way means living out justice in your relationships and living out prosperity in your family and fearlessness in your society and coexistence at the planetary level. So the evidence is only at these levels. Can we say that the families of any individuals who are said to have achieved understanding were living with prosperity that could have been universalized, or were living in a fearless society that could then be universalized through education the same way, or obviously not in a coexistential planet, because we never experienced that in human history. There's no testimony to that in human history, so let's leave that. But he's saying the what he is saying is that when you understand existence, you understand that existence is coexistence, and that coexistence for human beings is being able to live with justice, with orderliness. And orderliness and justice is very clearly defined as individuals who are confident in themselves, are living out just relationships in their families and their societies, are uh, producing their own they are talented, and they have personalities of character, and character has also been defined very categorically, and that their personalities and talents are balanced, that their production is what sustains them, that is, they're not dependent on any arms of any sort.
We know that, but we don't know lives of so many people on this planet. Like, let's assume he attained all that, but nobody knows about. I mean, few people, like not even a handful of people on the when you talk of the planet, know about it. So somebody can be saying the same thing there, that no one did it and no one left a tradition. He has left a tradition
He has
for
not
all
left
of
a
us to
tradition.
follow.
He has not left a tradition as yet. A tradition is when there is a passing on from generation to generation and it's accessible to others. To some extent, you can say that that
So
it's
that
forming
way,
into a tradition. But if it doesn't, if people again go back to some sort of blind faith practices of what he is talking about, then this also will fail to become a tradition. Because I mean, that's always a possibility. It's up to us to make sure that we understand what he's saying, we live what he's saying, what he lived. See, I saw how he lived. You never saw it. You only have my word for it, right? I saw how he was living, that in my head, it's clear that he was prosperous, he was resolved. He brought fearlessness in the people around him, in the communities around him. And so that I have seen for myself. I can check it, but you are only taking my word for it. But because I have seen that as a possibility and studied it in the sense of when he explains how he is able to do it, I have some ways of trying to bring that into my living as well. Now, if I bring it into my living, if I understand it and bring it into my living, only then can I pass on his life, his knowledge and understanding to anyone else, to you. If I have not understood him and his living, I can't pass it on to you either. So obviously, you won't have access to it. Your only source of access is me and my understanding, or anyone like me, of course, who actually saw what he lived like. So, until there is this transference of understanding and lived evidence, you can't say that there is a tradition. So, as yet, I would say there is no tradition of his also. Similarly, there might have been other people for whom the tradition failed to form. We can't say that there were 100% such people, because on what basis will we say it? There is no evidence. And we also can't say that there absolutely weren't, because again, we have no evidence to rule out the possibility. So, in that sense, it's hard to say. All we can say is that that which we have access to today, in the form of all the philosophical and religious traditions that have existed, they do not show any glimmer of this.
maybe they do. Therefore, there is 51% of humans that are positive rather than negative. Maybe that is how the 51% is.
No, no. So
That
he
is why there is a 51%. Most humans are, he said, no, like 51, like 4 or 5 out of 9. No,
no, not that. He's saying
maybe because of
that's not what
the
he's
traditions. No, he's not saying, but I'm saying that maybe if the 4 or 5 number has only is come there because of those
no,
people who
no.
came.
You're misunderstanding what he was saying to begin with. When he's saying 51% of people, he doesn't mean numbers of 51%. Like,
No, I know the 51 quality within yourself.
yeah, in you, in one individual, you're more good
Maybe
than bad.
so if earlier the saints and all those learned people, or what you say, what let's say with people who got the knowledge, if they had not been there, that even this 51% in me, you, this, that, and all may not have been there. Like with him coming in your life, your 51 probably has gone up. That kind of thing. So there is a effect. It may not have become a tradition, but there's definitely an effect. Otherwise, that 51 also might have been 30, 20, or 0, or whatever.
He's saying human beings start out with 51% because, like, he's clearly stated this just now in the previous few dialogues, that 51% he's saying is good because we still have that thirst for better than what we have today.
I know, but
We are
why
not
do we have
satisfied.
51? I mean, 51, that 51, we might have got it because of the way we have been, because of the traditions that have prevailed, like
I think
respect
he's saying
elders.
that urge is
Maybe the urge also
I think
grew,
he's
no,
saying
with
that
the.
urge is natural, right? And
Mhm.
innate. So it's not dependent on somebody else. It's like you automatically, naturally have the urge for something better, for something just, for something harmonious. We all have it. Even a child has it who doesn't know anything. It hasn't read any traditions, no? in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
A child might have 100% or 90%. It's the adults who'll end up having lesser and lesser because as it gets on. A child is supposed to be like, absolutely okay because he has hardly. So they say, but I don't know. And we may be at 51, as he says, because of the traditions and the sanskars that we've learned through traditions. Then so you'll veto the word sanskars also then. There's
He's
no word like sanskar then. Because
no. He's completely redefined the word sanskar. So sanskar are the acceptances. We covered this also a few times. Sanskar are a deeply rooted acceptances that are in line with reality. Those are sanskar, not what we call sanskar in our colloquial language, ki, whatever belief
okay,
system.
so there will be another word in the colloquial language, which may not be sanskar. Maybe
Hmm.
you can use any other word. But what I'm saying is, if say sanskars are what we carry from our previous life, then
No,
sanskars are
no.
also what? No, I'm talking of those. We can call it some other name. Don't call it sanskar if you don't want to. You
Hmm.
can call it something else. I don't know what, some other. And something we learn from our parents. Even if those who have not been educated on in this, they have some manners, they have some ethics, something which you may not have. And as a child, you were taught. Those are called what? Family traditions. Or I don't know what you want to call that word. I
Hmm.
call it sanskars. You know.
Yeah,
So
so you can call them habits within the family.
mm,
See, there's a difference between what an individual has and what the individual passes on. Because any individual, when you look at a tradition, we think of a whole system of as a complete entity. It's not one habit or one practice or one belief that is called a tradition. Individuals can pick and choose out of that what suits them and which version of what you find in the tradition suits them, and that they might pass on to their children. The children might pick and choose the version of what they get from their parents and convert it to their own interpretation and carry that in their lives and then try to pass that on to their children. You will find when you look at children and parents that how the parent embodied whatever belief or habit that they accepted is not the exact same thing that the child embodies, because the child finding it incomplete brings some tweaks it to some extent to suit their needs based on the child's observation of how that practice or that belief fell short of the parents' own needs. Like as a child, I observed my parents and I saw, whatever beliefs and practices they run with, they don't seem to even fulfill their own needs, leave alone mine. So when I take them with my own tweaks rather than taking them as it is from them. And that is why, and why am I doing that tweaking? Why am I taking something and changing it of my own will? It's because I have, as a human being, as a human individual with the innate quality for harmony, seeking harmony, I have that innate tendency in me to see, observe, choose, and play with belief systems around me, with habits and practices around me. And that I did not receive from any tradition. That was something, that is a capacity I was born with, as every human child is born with it. Every human child is born with this capacity to observe what their parents are doing, living, and telling them to do and live, and to make their own judgment about whether that is acceptable to them, to what extent it is acceptable, and how they can modify it and accept it in their living. So what we find is that no belief system gets passed on as it is. No practice gets passed on as it is. It keeps getting tweaked. Although you will find that in one generation, if it gets tweaked this way, in the next generation will get tweaked the other way. And so it seems like over 3 generations, it hasn't changed at all. But if you look at it closely from generation to generation, it keeps getting tweaked and changed. So there is no tradition. There's the individual's uh, own, what's it called, own research and innovation happening in each generation that is sustaining, rather than traditions being evidenced and lived. And the goodness therefore is coming from those individuals who are choosing to do this. Have I gone or something's happened?
No, you're here. I can hear you.
Okay.
So can you play the last sentence on a few sentences of what he said, just straight through?
Mm-hmm.
सारा तप योग अभ्यास करने का पूरा मतलब आदमी समझदार होना, प्रमाणित होना, परंपरा में उसको घोलना, यही बनता है। नहीं तो साधना किस बात की?
So the whole point of any sort of asceticism or penance is if the human being becomes knowledgeable, becomes evidenced, and is able to then share it within the rest of society and the tradition. Otherwise, what is the point of your penance? What is the point of your sadhana? That's what he's saying.
Got knowledgeable and shared it.
Huh?
People have come, got knowledgeable and shared it.
Whether that is knowledge or not depends on what they are sharing. That it is not knowledge if it is not understanding existence as it is. If we say, if what they attained was some idea.
No, of course, people have come and said almost what he's saying in so many ways. Everybody has their own way of saying the thing. It's not the first time we're hearing all this. Huh? It's happened before. People are knowledgeable. People have come on the planet.
So
Lots of
if you think what he's saying is the same as the things that have been said before, then you haven't
different way.
understood
In a different way. It's
No, then you haven't understood the distinction between what has been said before and what he is saying. He has been a student of the tradition, and he is stating that
I'm not talking of this. I'm not talking of the tradition ones. I myself don't know anything about our Hindu tradition and what they say. I don't know that. But so many saints have been around, and what all they've said is very much like this. Coexistence is very much there.
I think we only have the capacity to make that
I mean,
judgment.
he's not the only one who's come up with this thing. Others have, but he's come up in a different way, more easy to understand, more acceptable to our current brain.
No, I think he's saying that he's seen a complete picture which so far to his knowledge has not been seen before, and he has studied the texts and studied religions and studied everything from a place of seeing to make a judgment like that, and that's the statement he's doing. Now whether you agree with it or I agree with it, or we have to check it out, but that's, I think what he's saying is that actually what he's saying, there's a new perspective, there's a new kind of depth of understanding and a complete picture which has never till now been seen. But I think what he's saying is, like, because of the other traditions and the people who've done the penance and worked earnestly, like all these things support, like, like how if I know English because I've been taught English, basic English, then I might, advance in my study of English because I've got the support of people before, but I might still be better at English than, say, the people who taught me the English, for example.
Right.
So I think what he's saying is, he is claiming, I think, that actually he has seen something which is more complete than anything else he has known. Like, not that no one has seen it or known it, but that it hasn't come down in tradition for him to evidence to see that yes, this has been seen before, like he has seen something further. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, there's a distinction between, see, there are two things. One is a quantum leap from before, and another is a continuity from before. So he's saying there is a continuity, yet this is something completely new. And why he's saying that is that there's a continuity because his question was born out of the efforts and failures of human tradition up till now. In that sense, if those efforts had not happened, he would not have come up with his questions either, right? He would have started where the humans before him have already started. So in that sense, his queries were after studying human tradition, and they failed to answer his questions, therefore his questions emerged. But because his questions emerged, he was able to find the answers with his whatever his efforts. And now the answer that he found is is significantly different, is completely different from the answers available in tradition up till now. And that he kind of wraps up in two neat categories: tradition up till now has said two sorts of things. One category is what he has called the idealistic traditions of all kinds. And the other category he calls the materialistic traditions of all kinds. And if you look at any philosophy or any philosopher and boil down to what they're saying at the crux of it, it falls under one of these two categories. The first one, the idealistic one, says that at the fundamental level, existence is something which some people call God or spirit or something, which is inexplicable and unknowable and unshareable, ineffable even.
Some
That,
say that, not everybody. Some people with lots of who are knowledgeable people who have achieved that level of enlightenment don't say this.
we'll have to look at such an example then, because of all the ones that I have.
For that, you have to read all these people's lives and what they're saying then, which is impossible, may not interest you, may not
It has,
have time for it even.
it has interested me, and to the
No,
extent
I'm
I
telling you
research.
particularly and specifically in the world. Some people go in the morning and earn a living for the family. Say they don't have time to read. Doesn't mean it didn't exist, no?
No, I'm saying if we contend that people have not said this or either of these before, if they have said
Okay.
something completely different from these two, if we contend that, we have to have some basis. The basis can only be on our having seen such an example, our having studied such an example, or where they are saying something different from these two categories, and then we can compare. So I, for my own self, have gone over a few philosophies, Western and spiritual, and they, at the end of the day, they all do boil down to these two. On that basis, I can say, as far as I've seen, they fall under these two categories. If you have access to or are aware of a philosophy that doesn't fall under these two categories, I'll be happy to look at those as well.
I don't know why you're calling it philosophy. I wouldn't even call it philosophy. Their experiences and how they've explained it
Yeah,
and
so
how they live it. But
and
they didn't go into making it into a school of thought. They just lived it, and wherever the village and the state or they affected that area, and that's it. They didn't want to. There was no YouTube, so it didn't go out to the world. Not that
That's
kind of.
no, that's not what is meant by philosophy. Philosophy means you have seen something. Darshan is the word in Hindi, right? You have seen something or you have experienced something, reality as it is. And now your understanding of it, your perspective on reality now that you have experienced it in this way is your philosophy. Each of us has a philosophy. Whether or not it has a following or not, we all have a philosophy, and that's what why I'm calling it a philosophy. If someone's experienced something, they have a perspective on the world and a
People.
perspective with which they're seeing the world. So this vision,
My,
with this perspective, that is what a philosophy is. So in that way, anyone who has said to experience something, it is, and that doesn't seem to fall under these two categories, it's worth exploring what they were saying exactly. How do they see the world then? How do they see human beings? How do they see humane living? That is worth exploring.
so even if you read Guru Nanak, it's there. You read Aurobindo, it's there. You read these people. You read Vivekananda, it's there.
So, I mean, Aurobindo, I have had some acquaintance with. Pashwa Didi would be able to explain it even better. He's talking about the Advaita Vedanta-esque philosophy also, right?
Which Advaita is also this, in a way, no?
No,
Where
it's
he
not.
says when all is there's only one. One means existence. But they're saying it in a different language, a traditional, older language, one that worked in those days probably. But even this language, though it works in our time, we don't necessarily get it all right, no? Because life is running parallel and teaching us something different, and we're listening, and we're trying to apply it in our life. Sometimes managing, sometimes not. So that way.
Okay, so since it's already past 7, I would say that, see, I'm telling you, Advaita Vedanta is completely different from what this is saying. I can share documents or little short passages also to talk about the distinction between the two, but it is clearly different. If you understand what he is saying, you will have no doubts that this is completely different from what Advaita Vedanta is talking about. But yeah, I can't go into it right now. This is not
No,
even.
and Advaita Vedanta, we don't have to go hear about it only from Aurobindo's side. There's so many people who are talking about it.
Yeah, and all of them boil down to something similar, which he is categorized under Adhyatmavad. In fact, he is an authority. There is no higher authority on Advaita Vedanta than him. He was taught under the Sringeri Shankaracharya. I mean, that one, too, at least he's an authority on. The others also we can explore and find. But yeah, this is not the place. And we've uh, overshot in time.
So, according to him, I mean, I might be getting it absolutely wrong, but I'm just listening to it and this is what I'm hearing, that according to this, is he the only person in this whole world ever in existence who got it?
He's saying, I cannot with evidence say yes or no, because if he says that, because there is no evidence that anyone else got it, everything that we have access to as human beings living in the 21st century, we have no sign of anyone having got it. But that could be because someone got it and was unable to pass it on, like it might happen to him also. So, in that way, you can't rule out the possibility that someone got it. But of all that we have access to today in the 21st century, there is no evidence that someone got this.
It's so disappointing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why he was super
Disappointing means to hear that he thinks that way, or the whole lot of people think that way. Because there have been so many people. How can one say, when we don't know the other end of the world mein kya ho raha hai, how can we say that in the whole world nobody got it or didn't get it? Of course, somebody must have.
because this is
Yeah.
something which is quite powerful. Had it existed over time, it would become bigger and bigger. It is naturally acceptable to all human beings. It would be talked about. Even small experiments of humankind that are somewhat in line with harmony and togetherness are known about, whether they were happening in some corner of Spain or Mexico or Cuba. We still know about them, even about indigenous tribes who tried to live in a somewhat more harmonious way than we live today. And yet,
Only parts of it, no, only little part of it.
but we don't see any evidence or signs of this anywhere. It is only if it exists, it's only likely to grow, and yet we don't have any evidence. So on
So
that,
if you mean to say that you think that in maybe one, not now, maybe another 10 years, the whole world would know about it.
yeah,
There
they can easily find out if they
lots
look
of
for.
people, lots of part of the lots and lots of people who would never have heard of it also. They have lived the whole life not hearing about it even. That there was such a person who spoke this.
Not nat They won't automatically know, but if you look for it, if you look for people who are thinking along these lines, you would come across, like we come across so many experiments. Whatever you get involved in, see, say I start doing natural farming,
That of
and I
course.
don't, and I
But
don't know about natural farmers in, say, New Zealand. But if I am a natural farmer and I'm looking to see who else is doing it, I will search. And when I search, slowly over the years, I'll come to find out about all such experiments that are happening. And that's why you'll find in the alternate community, everyone's pretty much heard of every other sort of experiment. And if they haven't, sooner or later they find out of all other experiments that are doing well and are happening across the world. Because you look for it, and when you look for it, you find it. We
but
find what we look
how
for.
do we find? Through YouTube
Yeah,
or
through
through
more.
the
So
internet?
of course,
So
YouTube and
there were
internet.
times when there was no internet. Now Jesus Christ had to walk to talk.
But but now there is
But still,
internet.
Jesus Christ is very well known, right? Still, even though there was no internet, he's still very well known because he made some impact.
No,
And
we
so the
don't know
people who made
because
an impact,
his voice is not recorded. His followers' voices are recorded. His voice is not recorded. Babaji's voice is recorded. We
But
can actually
But
understand, hear.
evidence is in the tradition they leave behind. Even if
So
Shiva goes away and there is no tradition, there is no evidence that he understood anymore. You have no evidence that he understood because you never saw his life. So people 10 generations down the line will have no evidence that he saw the truth, which is not to say that he did not or did. How can we know?
the same thing with Jesus Christ. No,
Yeah, same thing with Jesus Christ. We don't know whether he saw the truth. We cannot say that he did, and we cannot say that he didn't. But what we get of Jesus Christ now is not the truth. if someone, I mean, maybe Baba's name remains 10 generations down the line, but there is some odd interpretation of what he is saying. Right today also, we all have different interpretations of what he's saying,
Correct.
which is not evidenced in our living, or what is evidenced in our living is not satisfying. So then we cannot say that that is evidence of the truth. It is only evidence that some human being called Nagraj lived and said something. What he said, we can't say.
But then we can't say no, that it didn't. So you mean
We
only if the whole world does and understands what he's saying and recognizes because of his teachings will it be called that it's a tradition.
Yeah, even before the whole world, at least if there is at least maybe one family, one society, then there is some real basis.
I think nobody has come to the level of teaching you in one family.
Huh?
You mean to say that so many wise people, wonderful people have come and they couldn't even have influenced one family?
Not
Is that
to,
what you're saying?
not in the sense of being able to, if they had understood something and formed a wise family of their own, they have not been able to have another wise family live in the same way as they did, at least. Say
They
Jesus Christ
may, but
had
they
a
may
religion.
be, how do we know? We just definitely don't know.
Huh?
How can you even talk like that? Because we definitely don't know how people are living, how many people are living, how.
If
Of
one,
course, there are families. Of course, there are so many families like that who
see,
are not following this path, following some other way, method from their gurus and living very, very nicely.
but if
And
there's,
I
But
tried
actually,
those, but I found
I think,
them difficult to understand because
I think it makes more sense. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
no, you go.
I think it makes more sense than to assume that there are these people and how do we know? It's like actually seeing like where do we see an example? Like I have not seen an example of anyone ever. Like I've studied a lot of teachings also and religions and spiritual teachers and new and
but
old
we
and
are not
everything.
in the whole
And I
world,
have
no?
not come across. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. So I have not seen the whole world. Neither has Rishta, neither have you. And I'm saying if we are saying that somebody might be like that, then I have to show that oh no, actually my neighbor lives like that. Like and actually I don't have an evidence of it. And all we are saying is that's what Nagraj ji said, that there was no evidence of that. Now we don't have to agree with it. None of us have to
Okay,
agree with
that's
it.
besides the point.
All we are saying is
But
that he's saying that is what that's all. I guess.
see, that's besides the point of the agreement. We're just talking. Agreement is बहुत दूर का बात अभी. But you mean to say, in spite of Nagraj being here 20 years ago, 30 years ago, till today, you have not seen a family like that, even in spite of him being there for so long.
No.
Hmm.
Is that what you're saying, Rishta?
Yeah.
So
Obviously,
even now, even now, there are no families like that.
no, there aren't. Of course, there aren't, because in order to be a family like that, you have to be realized like that. That's the prerequisite. So, unless you are realized that way, first you will become realized, then you will kind of, get practice in being a realized individual and try to be working
Hmm.
in the form of
If
family.
you say that no family is yet realized, then okay, then no family is realized. Okay.
Not on the basis of Nagraji and not on the basis of anyone else that I've seen also. If there were, see, I've seen him living in a family. I found that very inspiring, and a lot of people like me found that very inspiring. So we are all trying to be like that. If we understand what he was saying and how he was living the way he was living, we will be able to do that also. If we start living like that in our families, then
Hmm.
people around us will see it. If they see
I
it
think you will be
intangible,
able to live it like that only when you have the darshan.
what?
I think one can only live it like that when you have the darshan.
Yeah, of course.
Hmm.
So you wait
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
darshan first. It's a prerequisite, actually.
It's a prerequisite. That's what.
yeah,
So looking
Understanding
by
is
yeah.
doing.
a prerequisite for evidencing the understanding.
So it's a darshan we need to help us through this path.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that is what he realized, and that's what he went in for the samadhi. And so we all have to have a samadhi.
No. He didn't
Not
realize that
No.
samadhi,
before
but
Samadhi.
darshan. Hmm. Not
He went
samadhi, but darshan.
he went in for answering his questions. By chance, he came across this. And when I say darshan, what I am talking about is his understanding of existence. That there is space and there is material. There is material progresses and forms this stable material atom called configurationally complete atom called Jeevan, and then that Jeevan's powers, and this is the Jeevan's forces, and what is its tendencies, and that has to progress because it has this hope for living and then a hope for evidencing happiness. So this Jeevan is progressing in this direction, and this entire understanding of existence and its of the parts of existence that make it up, including the Jivan and human beings. That understanding is called the darshan. And so, without that understanding, obviously, we cannot live in our families.
Okay. So, without it being taught or explained the way he's explaining, which is excellent, which is the only way I can understand, you don't have to go so far to even Aurobindo. You can read Eckhart Tolle.
I have not read him so much, but I think Pashwa Didi has. No?
Well, according to me, even that if you can have
Yes,
that,
I have read it. I mean, I basically see. I didn't find him. What he's saying is not complete. He doesn't understand all of existence. He, I mean, there are actually errors in what he's saying according to me. So
actually sometimes
yeah,
what
I
people say and how we receive is also not the same, because when he said something really happened. Something happened. And then second time I heard him, it didn't happen. So sometimes that also happens.
Hmm. So, anyway, so that is each of our own journeys and what
yeah.
strikes us from where.
Correct. Ah,
No,
that.
no doubt about that. Because when we read something, it also triggers some of our own imagination. So we aren't just,
Correct.
it's not just what we are reading that strikes something
Hmm.
else. We've had some thoughts and we read something and that helps to tie up our own thoughts. So that's some part of us as well. So anyway, we can a lot of from different sources we can have insights. Here we are just trying to see what Baba is sharing, and what he's proposing is the educational methodology for all human beings to be able to understand uniformly without having this confounding factor of what thoughts one person might or might not have had. If they are presented with a whole picture, anyone can be able to can see it then
That I agree.
can
That's
be
true. Because he explains it in a very clear way, which you can understand.
yeah, basically you go into all the details and facets and they all tie together. There is no mystery left in any facet. That is a complete picture. Then anyone can look at it from any angle that you want. We all come from different angles and you can see it from any angle and choose whichever suits you and explore further from that angle.
Hmm.
ठीक.
Sorry, I
Hmm?
made you get. Sorry, I delayed you, people.
It's okay, it's okay. 20
It's
past.
okay.
ठीक है. Okay then. See you
Okay.
tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, see you.
See you. Bye. Bye.
Okay, bye.